First one's easy. Just your first and last name, spell it for me, and then your title.
Certainly. Stephen Cates, Stephenkates, financial analyst for Bankrate.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about where the tariffs stand right now with this news coming out of China and where we're at with those relations. What does it mean for the average American for things like 401ks and shopping at the grocery store, buying goods?
Certainly. So let's talk for a moment just about where we've come from and where we are. So if you think about where we were at the beginning of the year, prior to any of this tariff policy changing, Chinese tariffs were closer to about 20%. We went up to 145, which was basically all but an embargo on trade out of China. And now we're back to 30. So we're slightly higher than we were originally. And that is going to have an impact on consumers still, but it's a far cry from the heights of 145 where we were only a few weeks ago.
It's hard for people to kind of put it into perspective unless they know what it means for them. So what sort of changes are we seeing right now to people's 401ks and things like that? Are we seeing that at this point?
So from a 401k perspective, if you've remained invested in US stock, then you've had a great week. You've had a great 2 weeks because the market has rallied massively over the last 10 or so days. We're now positive for the year, so we've erased all of our losses from the announcement back in April. So this is certainly a bullish trend for anybody who's a U.S. investor. Now the U.S. is still underperforming global stocks. That's a position that most U.S. investors are not used to in the last 10 or 15 years, but we're moving in the right direction. So that's certainly a positive. I think that investors generally should take this as a wake-up call, that if they've only been invested in large cap US tech, that they need to diversify. Having some fixed income, having some exposure to global stocks is going to give you a little bit of a softer ride when we have volatility like this. We can't just be all US all the time because we are going to have periods of volatility and tumultuous changes going through the economy. So diversification is going to be one way that you can combat that.
Okay, and that kind of leads to the next question, right? Someone's sitting at home, they're watching the back and forth, and they kind of wonder, like, what should I be doing? What should I be doing to protect my money, to be making safe choices?
So one of the most foundational things that you can do to protect your finances is have an emergency fund. If you don't have one today, make building one a priority. You don't have to stop everything, but you do need to start to prioritize having a little bit of a cushion of cash. Because if we see the economy start to slow down later this year, even though tariffs have come back from as high as they were, they're still going to have an outsized impact on the economy. We're still seeing a slowing labor market. Even if the odds of a recession are lower, we could still see the economy slow down. And that may impact hiring, it may impact the labor market overall, and people need to be protected and they need to have an emergency fund, which is simply going to be a buffer from those what ifs in life. If your brakes go, if you have a loss of income, you're going to have a little bit of cushion to fall back on, and that's going to keep you from falling into debt or having to make difficult choices like pulling money out of a 401k when you don't want to.
Okay, anything else you want to add just for people to know, or are you good to go?
I think I'd add that we're likely going to see a considerable amount of news about tariffs, about the market, about everything in between. Some of that is going to be noise. I think for investors, thinking long term is still going to be the best way to maintain a wealth building strategy. If you get too caught up in the day-to-day movements, that can distract you from ultimately what is the long-term goal, which is to grow your money, to invest consistently, and to try to put yourself in a position where not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, but 5, 10, 15 years from now, you have built up a consistent nest egg that now you can depend on.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, have a good day.
You too.